This is Joe Pastore with Platinum Method Coaching, back for another installment of Career, Balance, and the Pursuit of Happiness. Last time we spoke about limiting beliefs, so today we're going to talk about patterns of unhelpful thinking, as the two often go hand in hand. Now just to recap in case you missed it, a limiting belief is something you accept about your life, yourself, the world, or the people in it that limits you in some way. Or stated more simply, a limiting belief is an energy block that prevents us from doing something. Now, some limiting beliefs we may learn when we're young from our friends, our family, our parents. They may also be assumptions that we made and thought were true, but they really weren't. A limiting belief comes in the form of our inner voice telling us not to do something, to be conservative, or to play small. Now, we have to be careful when we assume that because something happened in the past, under particular circumstances, that will always happen, or worse yet, that those circumstances caused it to happen. This is known as a cause and effect relationship. And oftentimes we attribute something happening because something happened at the same time as something else, and we assume it happened because of the other event, when the reality is the two had nothing to do with one another. So today, let's look at some patterns of unhelpful thinking. Some limiting beliefs are formed because of thought patterns that are trying to help protect us. But sometimes these thought patterns get in the way of us growing and advancing ourselves. An example would be when you're learning to walk. You're going to fall and you're going to fall again. You're going to fall down a bunch of times, and sometimes you're going to get hurt. But imagine if you never learned how to walk because you fell down and got hurt. Learning new skills or tasks are not always fun and can be downright painful or dangerous. But we need to get past this initial discomfort to grow. Even though that inner voice is telling us not to do something, it's doing it to protect us from getting hurt, but it's not really helping us in the long run. If you've ever read The Secret, you're familiar with the concept that whatever we think about, we attract. Therefore, we should focus on positive thoughts. Mother Teresa summed it up best when she said that she would not go to an anti-war rally, but she would go to a pro-peace rally. So here are 7 common examples of patterns of unhelpful thinking. You're probably familiar with them, we just never thought about it. The first is predicting the future. This is when we feel anxious. It's common for us to spend so much of our time thinking about the future and predicting what could go wrong, as opposed to just letting things be. In the end, most predictions we make about the future don't actually come to pass. We just waste time and energy being worried and upset about them. For example, you predict the future by assuming that you'll perform poorly on a job interview. You assume that someone will reject you even before you ask them out on a date. Think about the last time you predicted something in the future in an unrealistic or unhelpful way. Did it actually come to pass? Number 2 is mind reading. This is when we assume what we know what people are thinking, usually about us, without any real evidence to suggest that it's true. We also make assumptions about why someone said something or behaved in a certain way and are quick to conclude that it has something to do with us. An example would be, my boss thinks I'm stupid, or my work colleague is just ignoring me. Now the reality may be that they just have something else on their mind. So think about the last time you made an assumption or jumped to a conclusion without any real evidence suggesting that it was true. Were you right? The next one is catastrophizing. People commonly catastrophize when they're anxious. This is when we blow things completely out of proportion and view the situation as a catastrophe, even though the problem is actually quite small. How do you feel about yourself the last time you overgeneralized a situation or about a group of people? Next is imagining a worst-case scenario. Well, we make predictions that the worst-case scenario is going to happen, despite the fact that we may have been successful in this area in the past. For example, maybe you're going to give a presentation to a group of people and you think, oh my God, I'm so nervous, I'm going to screw this up. Even though in the past you've given many successful presentations. Or maybe you assume that someone hates you because they didn't reply to your text within 10 seconds. Think about the last time you blew something completely out of proportion in your mind. How did you feel afterwards? Number 5 is focusing on the negatives. When we're anxious, we often develop tunnel vision, where we focus solely on the negative aspects of the situation without considering the positive aspects. Sometimes the whole picture can be tainted by a single negative detail. For example, focusing on the one person who doesn't like you rather than the other 20 who do like you. Think about the last time you focused more on the negative than on the positive. What would have changed if you hadn't? Number 6 is overgeneralizing. Based on one instance in the past or the present, you make an assumption that others will follow a similar pattern in the future. A sense of helplessness often accompanies such overgeneralizations. For example, just because one ex-partner cheated on you, you may believe that all men or women are bad. How'd you feel last time when you imagined a worst-case scenario in the situation, the circumstances you were facing? And the last one I want to mention today is called labeling. We label ourselves based on behavior in a specific situation. We define ourselves by one specific behavior, and usually it's a negative one. We fail to consider the other positive characteristics or actions. For example, I'm always anxious, even though this is not always the case. Or I'm not good enough because you failed at something, even though there are other things you're good at. What labels do you currently define yourself by, and are they complementary? If not, which ones do you need to change? Now, take some time to review these unhelpful thought patterns and see if any of them apply to you. If so, try to start policing your thoughts. Remember, you attract what you think about. So now that we've examined patterns of unhelpful thinking, the next time I'd like to discuss mistaken beliefs. But before we do that, we're going to pay a visit to our old friend and brush up on a little physiology history that you're undoubtedly familiar with, Ivan Pavlov. So until next time, this is Joe Pastore with Platinum Method Coaching.